Hey everyone, I'm Robbie Cornthwaite.
I'm Daniel Mullen.
I'm Angelo Costanzo.
I'm Marco Flores.
I'm Marcelo Carusca.
I'm Ian Fife.
This is Casio, and you're watching.
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 And you are watching
Purebred Reds, Adelaide United Fan TV.
Hi, I'm Daniel Mullen, former Adelaide United player and Asian Champions League winner with Western Sydney Wanderers. When it comes to any of my soccer needs, I do my shopping here at Soccer Locker. An Australian-owned and operated business, the store is located at Shop 5 of 181 to 183 Grange Road, Findon. Founded in 2017, Soccer Locker was introduced into the market to fulfil all the soccer-related needs of Australians, providing a huge range of quality clothing and equipment ranging from soccer balls, team kits, goalkeeper gear, accessories and much more. Recently arrived stock also includes stunning retro kits from some of our favourite past eras as fans of the world game. Soccer Locker is a specialist in premier range boots, Adidas and Puma, goalkeeper gear and licensed merchandise. Visit us online at www.soccerlocker.com.au with free delivery Australia-wide. So get shopping now at our Findon store, open from 10 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. from Monday to Friday and open Saturdays from 9 a.m. to
G'day guys and welcome to the Purebred Reds Adelaide United Fan TV. I'm your host Ellis Gelios, coming to you for the second time in 4 days as we tackle Melbourne Victory for the second time in 4 days. And joining me on this episode to review the FFA Cup loss, the very disappointing 2-1 FFA Cup loss, and the upcoming A-League fixture on Saturday evening against Melbourne Victory at Marvel Stadium, is a man who once coached in Adelaide United's youth team setup. He is now the Adelaide City women's head coach, and I'm delighted to say that I'm joined by one of the sharpest football coaching minds in the state, that is for sure. Angelo Paul is his name. Ange, how you going?
Good, Ellis. How you been? Thank you very much for the nice words. I don't think you're quite right. I actually saw you recently, not too long ago, and I wanted to ask, how is your foot? I know you're in a moon boot. Is it okay? Is it healing? You were hobbling everywhere. You couldn't walk.
Yeah, thank you for asking. I am walking wounded, but luckily I'm not good enough to play football, so Adelaide United need not rely on me. But Ange, it's been a busy time for you, obviously. As the assistant to the Adelaide City men's team, you actually played Melbourne Victory very recently and dominated them and should have beaten them with Paul Pezos being the head coach there and you being the assistant. That game played at Marden only a number of weeks ago in the FFA Cup. So we're going to talk a lot more about that later on in the interview. There's so much to get through though. So I just want to start off by asking how everything's been. It's been a busy year, obviously. The announcement and congratulations to you, of course, for becoming the Adelaide City women's head coach. So how that's all been for you and what you're getting up to right now, because it's been a real sort of action-packed 24 months for you, I think.
Yeah, so this season was long. It was tough. There was just so many fixtures and fixture pile up, and then we had to play the FFA Cup post the NPL season, and we played Victory. As you know, we did quite well. We didn't win. We conceded really late, but it is what it is. So since then, I've had a nice bit of a break. And yeah, starting with the girls, they've been fantastic so far. We've had 2 sessions. We just sort of caught up a bit before Christmas and it went well. So since then, went to Kangaroo Island and had a nice little break. Refresh, because I know there's a big year coming up. So yeah,
there most certainly is a big year coming up. Now I know you're not entirely sure on how to answer this question, but we can both speculate that in terms of Adelaide City's modern history, you're the youngest ever senior head coach, which I guess with that comes an element of serious pressure, because you're not in a position that many people find themselves in, being the age that you are, which is younger than a hell of a lot of people involved in the football scene in South Australia. And here you are now with the task of taking Adelaide City's very successful women's team, as we know, clearly one of the most successful women's teams in the state in the WNPL. You are now the main man. So does that, I know you're going to say it doesn't, but surely, when you sort of stop and think about it long and hard, it must sort of get to you in some ways.
Maybe. Most likely not. I don't think so. I haven't really thought about it, to be honest. But like you said, with the women's program, Pez came in. He did a phenomenal job. He really built the program up. Then Andy Quarterbank sort of solidified that. So there's been a lot of success in the past. I'm going to give everything. The one thing that you'll know is that I'll be prepared. I'll work hard, and whatever the outcomes are, the outcomes are. So we'll see.
Well said too. Now, before we get on to talking more about yourself, let's discuss the FFA Cup loss 2-1 in the end to Melbourne Victory, despite going ahead through that Craig Goodwin free kick. And we were looking good at that point in time, Angelo. But then, unfortunately, halftime, I guess, came at the wrong time, and we saw a very different Adelaide United in the second half, a much flatter side coming out against the Melbourne Victory, and some really ordinary mistakes to blame for the loss in the end. But I want to start off by asking you, we saw Carl Viet, who wasn't coaching on the night, of course, but basically his instructions were to go into this game resting the team. He had to rotate after playing his stronger players, if you like, against Wellington Phoenix in the A-League the weekend before. Now, I think this was an opportunity that was really missed in the FFA Cup. Of course, if we won this game against Melbourne Victory, we'd be hosting Wellington next up. And with our history in this competition, you'd really back us to go on and win it from that point on. So I've got to start off by asking you, did Carl Viet get this one right by prioritising the A-League instead of prioritising a home fixture in the FFA Cup?
So I assume you're obviously speaking about resting Jakobsen and Isaias. It's so tough. The common denominator between Jakobsen and Isaias is that they're older players. And if there's one thing I've learned with Nick Hadji at Adelaide City is the importance of conditioning players, and managing loads is a big part of it. So it is a midweek fixture surrounded by fixtures. So, you know, this is where coaching comes into play, and it's a balancing act, and it's tough to make. You know, they're tough judgment calls. At 1-0 up, it's looking like a great decision because we're winning. We're looking good in the FFA Cup, and then we've got potentially rested players to play the following game, which is only 3 days later. Okay, we lose the game. It is what it is. And now the team goes into the next game a bit wounded. The FFA Cup's a great opportunity because you can get into Asia potentially, into a playoff game into Asia. So there's that. But, you know, Carl's looking at it and he's thinking, okay, well, I'm only assuming that we can do really well in the FFA Cup and not win, and it could be a detriment to our season. And I mean, if you ask any coach at the start of the year what their focus is, it's the season. So I'm not going to criticize him for the decision because I know it's a tough decision. We don't know if even the players were able to get up in a midweek fixture. So it's a tough one. The loss is disappointing, but you know, you've got to move on, and now there's a good focus on the league.
If I can ask you where we went wrong, would you say it's sort of, you know, trying to hold on to that 1-0 lead, given that prior to scoring that first goal, we actually looked like the significantly better side in the game. And I guess you could say in hindsight that that first half was a real good opportunity for us to capitalise on the dominance that we had in the game and potentially get that 2 or 3 goal buffer. So would you say the team went wrong by going into the second half trying to ride it out rather than kicking on and trying to, you know, further solidify the lead?
Well, it's difficult to say because I think when we preview the game coming up, I'll speak a little bit about, you know, how I see the way Melbourne Victory play. And they're just a really dangerous team. And if you reflect on actually how we conceded the goals, I mean, it's a set piece, and it's towards the end, Tratt's made a mistake and he's turned over the ball and they've counterattacked and scored a goal as a result. So again, it's easy to lay blame at the coaching, but, you know, this is football. This is how it works. You know, you go 1-0 up against a good team to potentially go into the next round. Maybe you can try and solidify and hold on, or maybe you can go for it, and the decisions that they have to make. But upon reflection, I think they'll be quite disappointed, especially the goals came quite late. So.
Yep, I completely agree. And you've spelled that one out quite nicely with everything being considered, I guess. And it's not so much just having a go at the coaches. I guess it's the players really, because when you look at that set piece that we conceded, and it was, schoolboy marking, really. I mean, it was a case of the back four sort of looking at one another, and a poor 16-year-old in goals that had to pick the ball out of the net. So it's not really the coaching that you can even lay blame there.
Well, they would have practiced, but I know going into the game, they would have been concerned with set pieces, because Melbourne Victory have scored 11 goals this year, and in the A-League, that is, 4 of them being set pieces, direct set pieces, one of them additionally being a second phase set piece. So they're lethal from set pieces. And you mirror that with the fact that Adelaide United have a very young goalkeeper, I think quite a promising goalkeeper. I've seen a little bit of him in the past. It's a tough recipe, that one. So I know they would have worked hard on it. But it's a quality ball in, it's a good finish, and look at that, you're 1-1. So
yeah, and it all fell apart from there, basically. Now, talking about the ACL, you brought it up before. Is that our hopes of winning silverware done this season, considering that it looks like there's a bit of a mountain to climb to get into the sort of, the mixer when it comes to teams that are going to compete in the A-League this season? We certainly look quite far off at the moment. I know it's still early on, and there's only a 6 or 7 point buffer that we need to make up to suddenly be, in contention. But just looking at the team and the struggle that it's been to get results, it looks like we're pretty far off at the moment. So considering that this was a good opportunity to win silverware, and you just spoke before about the importance of Asia as well. Do you think this is a significant opportunity that's been missed here?
I think so. You beat Melbourne Victory, you potentially have a game. I think the next round is Wellington. Correct me if I'm wrong with that one.
At home, yep.
Home game as well. So we can all agree that's a very winnable game. And then all of a sudden, anything can happen in a final. I remember watching with my dad, actually, Adelaide United beating Melbourne City 4-0 with the 2A performance. And honestly, going to the game, I'm like, it's unlikely, isn't it? But you just got to get there. So, yeah, of course, there's an opportunity missed. But like I said, I think the coaches will look to prioritise league performances. You don't want to finish outside the top 6. I think that's at the bare minimum what's required, is to finish inside the top 6 for Adelaide United. Is it the lost chance for silverware? I'm not sure. It looks like it, but things can change quick. And also, I think there's talks of potentially some players coming in. Mm-hmm. The window opens up. I heard something about potentially a foreign striker. Who knows what that will entail? Maybe you get a gun, maybe not. But it looks tough. It looks tough. And obviously there's been some injuries with Ansel as a centre-back, which hurts. And yeah, it's not looking great.
Before I ask you what we should take out of it as a team, are you asking us to read between the lines here a little bit? Because you're involved in plenty of circles in the game here in Australia. Is it a case of most coaches in the A-League would have the KPI of finishing the top 6, or else you might be in trouble?
Well, I'm just looking at it how I would, in my point of view. I can't speak for other coaches. I can only guess. But the league's a priority. Like 100% is the priority. We have the cup in the NPL, and what would you rather win, the cup or the league, and potentially the finals? Is the latter, not the former. So that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
And I think for the most part, it will be the requirement of the people higher up, is that's the number one priority.
Yeah, no, I have to agree. So that leads us into, the takeaways. Obviously, we're going into playing them for the second time in 4 days, which is pretty bizarre, but I'd take that over the dreadfully long off season that we've got. So going into this game, it's, a different set of variables now, back in the league and away this time round, going there away for the first time this season. What do we take out of it?
Well, you can just put the FFA Cup behind us and the FFA Cup done. Now you can focus entirely on the league. So that's what you take out of the game, I think. And then we move on to Saturday.
Sounds good. Segueing into the preview. So we do play Melbourne Victory this Saturday night at Marvel Stadium. Cannot wait to see the team hopefully bounce back. Got to start by asking the obvious question, which is, how does Ross Aloisi rotate this team to get the most desired outcome, which is hopefully 3 points?
Yeah. So for me to try and predict any sort of starting lineup, we have to look first at how Melbourne Victory play, and who the opponent is. Firstly, Isaias coming in, Jacobson's coming back. But I got a couple of questions for you. So the first one is Melbourne are top and they've got 4 wins and 1 draw, 1 loss, and they're flying. So it's a total of 6 A-League games. How many times do you reckon they've won the possession stat?
Once.
0. They haven't won it yet once. So then they've scored 11 goals, which is the most in their league. So the one of the lowest possessions in the league, and they've scored the most goals. Out of those 11 goals, how many do you reckon have come from build-up play? Building up more than 5 passes, let's say.
10?
10. 1.
Okay.
1 goal has come from build-up play. Now, it depends on your definition of how you want to define things, but what that basically suggests is what their strength is that they're good on the counter-attack. 5 of the 11 goals have come from the counter-attack. Last question I got for you. How many passes do you think are made on average in those counter-attack goals? So for one of those counter-attack goals on average, how many passes do you reckon are made before they score?
3.
2. That was close. So they are quick, they're rapid, they're fast. They've got Margiotta, the striker, who gets in behind. He's direct. They've got wingers who are quick, that can dribble. The wingers are a bit more of ball carriers, but they've also got players like Brimmer as a 10, who is breaking the lines from that 10 position. So when they win the ball, they go. And it's not necessarily them winning super high up the pitch either. It's sort of in that middle zone area where they're doing the most damage at the moment. So for that reason, I think the real question is, do Adelaide United look to play with a second 6 instead of a single 6? Because if they play with a single 6, and they've had a success with a single 6 for a while now, it's because they got Isaias and they've got Jakobsen, and they're able to play out with those guys like without too much problem. So if you have 1-6, you have the second player that should be a second 6 potentially. You can use him higher up and create overloads and goal scoring opportunities. So the question doesn't come if they should use a second 6 for build up. It's more about having players behind the ball to protect for counter attacks, if that makes sense. So again, like I said, they're comfortable building up with just Isaias. But in my opinion, and my opinion doesn't really mean much, let's be honest here, they should potentially look at playing 2 6s, because what we saw in the game when we played them in the league the first time is once Melbourne City won the ball, they broke with numbers and they outnumbered us on those counter attacks. If you have a second 6, at least your counter cover's stronger. It's better, especially because we like to get Cavallo high as a left back. Now it looks like Kiddo potentially will be starting to play that role. I'm not sure how that is going to adjust things too much. I don't think it'll be too much of a difference. Especially because our right back, Javier Lopez, is not as advanced as our left-sided player. So in the first game, Rojas had one-on-ones. Brimmer had so many basically an open goal, and it really should have been 4-0. Like if we're 3 or 4-0, if we're being honest, we watch that game back and we just got destroyed on the counter. And for me, it's a combination of turning the ball over in bad areas, obviously, not being quick enough to potentially foul players high up the pitch, but then not having enough numbers behind the ball to stop the counter-attack and to try and nullify it at best, try and force players wide, slow players down so you can get numbers behind the ball. So tactically, that's sort of a question I'll be looking at. I hope that we don't, well, if we play with a single 6, obviously I hope we're winning, but I'll be worried because, if they start winning that ball and going, it could be a tough game. And even if some players, you put Robbie Cruz in there, he's still got that ability to break the lines and make clever runs. So, yeah, that's sort of what I'm looking for at this game is that moment.
Loving the front row seat we have here into this brilliant tactical analysis, Angelo Paul, and there's so much more to get through. So it's just an absolute joyride at the moment to pick your brain here. Now, like I said, there's heaps to get through. So just taking a back step from the tactical side of things briefly, you've been in the mind of players before. You've worked closely one-on-one with individuals on a team basis. So you know exactly what the psychology of players is like, having the level of experience you have despite the fact that you're quite young. So when it comes to at the pro level, having a caretaker in charge, for the younger players in particular, does it change anything with regards to the psyche?
Well, obviously, I just think back when you ask this question, I just think back of me trying to do early Adelaide United sessions when potentially Pez wasn't there, and you have Pezos, and then you have me, and it's like, well, the players are like, what's going on here? But obviously, the good thing with Adelaide United is they have Ross Aloisi, and I really like Ross. I think he's a top coach. I think he's tactically very good. He's firm. So for him to have the respect of the players, he'll have it, no question. So I think for United, it's less of a I guess, burden. And if you talk about the psyche of young players, hopefully these young players are just hungry to prove themselves. So it doesn't matter who the coach is, doesn't matter what's happening. It's more sort of, I think, the senior players and the group as a whole to hope that morale doesn't drop. Maybe not morale, but that focus and that energy. Ross is going to try and implement what Carl wants at the end of the day. So it's not going to be Ross taking the reins and doing whatever he wants. So yeah, it's not ideal, but they're professional players. Their young players are hopefully hungry. So you would hope it doesn't have that much of a difference.
Certainly, we are hoping. Now, Melbourne Victory are bitter rivals. There's no club that comes anywhere close to amassing the kind of hate from us that Melbourne Victory do, and that's been the case since day dot. And we're staring down the barrel of a third straight defeat to them this season already. Ange, so is that going to be weighing on the minds, maybe more so of the more experienced ones this time, in regards to, you know, geez, our fans are probably going to be getting pretty stuck in if we're already so few games into the season. We've already dropped 3 games to Melbourne Victory, the arch enemy.
Yeah, I think so. But in like conjunction with the fact that our league season hasn't started very well. So I think those two together, I actually think it's quite a big game. I think a loss here is a bit worrisome, especially losing potentially Stefan Mork, and I think Halloran's a massive loss. So considering that, it's not good for the morale, and potentially players stop believing a bit, and that's when some problems can happen. So I think we need to win. And the very least, don't lose.
Yeah, well, I like where your mind's going, because I was about to ask you about the transfer disruptions. So obviously we know that Halloran's gone. Mork is not 100% confirmed. I believe he's yet to arrive at a decision, but I think if you put 2 and 2 together, you know, dollar signs and another crack overseas, it'd be pretty crazy, despite the fact that he's captaining his hometown team, not to take that opportunity. And you would know better than anyone, you know, sliding doors in football and how much it can change your career when an opportunity comes along. So I think we can safely assume they're both going to go. Now, with that in mind, and the, I guess, highly likely possibility that Lockie Brooke will come in, who you've coached before at Adelaide United, what's it going to do to the camp at the moment, just knowing that those disruptions are taking place? And I guess the extension to that is, how do you think Lockie Brooke will fit into this team? Does he immediately command a starting spot in the team? Because obviously we've had players like Bernardo playing really quite well, and Kiddo's, you know, another option there. He's been playing as a fullback, but he's still another option up top too. So does he command a starting berth straight away?
Lockie,
Yeah.
I would probably say so. I think losing Harlan's a massive loss. I think he's really good at breaking the lines in behind, and he stretches teams really well, but he's not just that either. He can get in the pockets. I remember a number of games he's been moved as a 10, late in games. And yeah, I think he's a massive loss. He can get you goals, he assists, he works hard, he presses well. So yeah, losing him and losing Stefan Mork, also club captain, that's not ideal. But I think we have a bit of a problem in our midfield and the mix of the midfield, and I think we are lacking a bit of an out-and-out number 10 when you play with a single attacking midfielder. So I think we need a bit more creativity in there. I think Bruce Jitte, I heard him on the news talking about how he would bite if he was in charge. Well, I don't want to quote him exactly, but along the lines of him would be bringing in a new number 10.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, both of them are big losses. I think Halloran a bit more so. But yeah, if you bring in Lockie Brook, I think he's a phenomenal player. He's young, he's hungry, and unbelievable left foot. He's nippy, he works. So yeah, I think he comes in and plays. If they're going to the effort of bringing him from Brentford, then they're looking to play him.
It's an interesting one with Brook because, as you'll recall, such a talented player and a great prospect, but we've been stocked with wingers for such a long period of time. He could never really break in. And it wasn't until the A-League Cup where he got his real chance for the first time to impress, and he did, and he took it with both hands, and then he was off. And since leaving and going to Brentford, we know he's been heavily involved with our under-23s, but yet to make an appearance at senior level. So it's an interesting one with him. It's almost like he comes back and there's still a lot for him to prove.
Yeah, I think so. He's still making his way through his career. He's still super young. I believe in him. I think he's got a lot of ability and he will bring a lot. I think the other wingers that we have, they're very young and they can come in and do a good job, 30 minutes off the bench, maybe a start here or there. Are they ready to be starting week in, week out? I'm not sure. But they will put pressure on Lockie. Lockie knows he has to perform. So it's a good deal for Adelaide United.
And if you were in charge of this team, how would you address the question mark regarding the captaincy, assuming Mork goes?
Oh, well, you have Isaias was a previous captain, wasn't he?
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's an easy decision. I think you can go to Isaias or potentially Jakobsen.
The names being floated are also Goodwin and Harvey Lopez.
I don't think Harvey Lopez should be captain. He's a foreigner. He hasn't been at the club very long. Goodwin's a good potential one. Local, he's an Adelaide boy, isn't he? Goodwin? Yeah. So that's a tough one. That's actually quite tough. I would probably go Isaias.
Yeah.
Isaias is the most senior member. He probably commands the most respect in the dressing room. Previous captain of the club. I think you go with that.
Safe option for sure. So looking at Melbourne Victory just momentarily, they've played a lot of games. They've had a real heavy schedule, and this is a Victory team that's I think come into the season without having the ideal kind of preseason because of lockdowns and all kinds of disruptions going on over there in Victoria. So surely the amount of games they've had to play and the travel they've had to undergo, which of course we've seen them in Adelaide for FFA Cup games prior to the one that we just saw. They've done plenty of big round trips. Is it going to catch up to them at some point, do you reckon?
Yeah, potentially. But you know what? They've got a big squad. I mean, they didn't have Spranovic for a number of games early, and they managed. And Margiotta was coming into fitness, playing through the FFA Cup, and they managed. And they've got Robbie Cruz. Looks like he's coming off the bench, and he can start games. And Economides, I reckon's played one game, and they're top of the league, and they're into the semi-finals of the FFA Cup. So they've got quality. They've got quality depth. So if any team's going to handle the pile-up, it's going to be them.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about what you made of them coaching against them, which was recently. I just find it quite riveting how this has all come so full circle. So you were literally in the dugout against Victory in the FFA Cup game that they played against Adelaide City. Now, this game was at Marden. We saw Adelaide City really take it to Melbourne Victory. It was a Herculean effort, really, considering that you'd been out of NPL action for a number of weeks since winning it, of course. Yet we saw Adelaide City absolutely take it to Victory in this game. And, how City didn't score a goal in this game is, I think, something that still baffles everyone that was there and watching. But you obviously had a front row seat, Ange, in the dugout. So what did you make of Victory in that game? And I guess, is it something that's just gone to further highlight the fact that they are super, super good at sticking to the proper way of just relying on their strengths on the counter-attack?
So that game was so much fun. That was an unbelievable game to be a part of, and Pez, who was obviously first team coach at Adelaide City, was incredible. He was commanding the troops, and the boys gave everything. And look, I think we should have won, honestly, but we didn't score. So do we deserve to win? Probably not. We didn't score the goal. So I feel as though we controlled the game quite well. We played out very, very well. We played into our sixes quite comfortably, and we got overloads in attacking areas, and we created the chances. We didn't score them. And I think we nullified them quite well. They couldn't really play out from the press, and it just felt like we were in control. But they're dangerous. They're super dangerous, because even when you think you're in control, they're probably in control in their own way as well. So, but we were wary of the counterattack. We looked at it a lot before the obviously the game and the week leading up to it. But yeah, we could have won it. We didn't. But you know what? We needed a break. We were like. We were dead. We finished the league and then trained for a month, and everybody else is like having a great time, and the break's nice. So it was a nice way to go out, but I'm a bit dirty over it, to be honest.
At the very least, a fantastic experience for you on a personal level, of course.
Yeah, it was nice.
I guess with that game in mind too, because of course there's no reason why Adelaide United, if they want examples of how to take it to Melbourne Victory, they should go and look at Adelaide City's performance in that game, in my opinion. But with that game in mind, of course, and everything else that we've discussed, and it's been a lot to unpack, how do you think Adelaide United should approach this game on Saturday night?
I think they should be cautious. Also, you're going away from home. So I think I listened to Ross's interview like a couple of minutes before getting on this call, and he mentioned some similar things about how they had 60% possession, but again, like I said, try and nullify the counterattack first. Can you build up well, and then if you get chances, you have to take them. It's going to be tough, but hopefully they get over the line.
Here's to hoping. I guess it's that time for me to ask, what is going to happen, Ange? Your prediction?
I think probably Victory will win 2-0. That's probably my guess. They're too strong in the count. They're too strong at set pieces. The two sixes defend the back four very, very well. That's probably my prediction, if I'm being honest. What I want to happen, I'll say, actually, you know what? I'll change it. I'll go 2-1, LA United win. Let's go with that. Go with my heart.
The head and the heart say different things, don't they? Before we move on, Ange, it'd be remiss of me not to ask you about Lockie Barr, because, of course, you were just very recently coaching him at Adelaide City. He has been signed.
And Asad
Kasimovic as well. Thank you for reminding me. Two City players that we've signed. So how should, I guess, in both individual cases, how should they be, blooded into the Adelaide United team?
Well, I think they're very different. They're coming from very different trajectories of their career. Lockie Barr's ready-made. They've signed him for the reason that he can play straight away. Lockie's the best professional, man. Like, it works so hard, and in the changing room, he's hilarious because he is the king of small talk. He's good at talking to every player. It doesn't matter who you are. You could be Nick Booker, you could be Joey Costa, you could be the two reserves players that are coming in to join the session, and he'll have a little chat to them, and then the next week he'll speak to them again, refer back to the previous chat. He doesn't forget. So for our coach, he was incredible. He can step in. He's that level. So I think it's quite clear that they're not too keen on Timothy. I mean, they played against Melbourne Victory one day at centre back instead of him. I actually heard your little spiel on it about how asking why we signed him. So I think there's potential there for Lockie to play, and he'll be great. Aside, he's up and coming. I think I just saw on Instagram, I think it was, he's now number 47, so AK 47. Gun. So hopefully he's hungry. He's got desire. He's got a lot of ability. He'll continue to improve. He'll work hard. If he gets his chance, I think he'll take it. So he was fantastic for us during the year.
There you go. And we can very much look forward to seeing both those guys come in. I think, even though you just spoke about how it would appear to the naked eye that Lockie Barr is the one you would think that gets some first-team action before Assad. I think given that there's such a question mark over our 9 and the state of our attackers at the moment, Assad's
maybe
possibly even more or less ahead of Lockie in the pecking order. But we will see what happens. For sure. Well, there's no better time for them to come in than now, because I think everyone should be seriously, keeping an eye and looking over their shoulder, because no one should be a safe bet on the team sheet as far as things go right now with Adelaide United. Let's leave all that, Angelo Paul, and talk about the man behind the coach, the very promising young manager that we have here in South Australia. Of course, so much experience already for such a young guy, and makes a lot of the football manager players quite envious, I'm sure. So before we revisit everything, let's talk about how you first got into football, your introduction, and the inspirations behind you growing an affinity with the world game.
All right, so I don't know if Joe Mullen knows this, but it was actually him, because he coached our first 11 Saints team at school. So our first team coach was Joe Mullen. It was ridiculous. But so we had him, and that was like step one of discovering a bit of a passion for coaching, because I just saw him sort of conduct us well, and the harmony of the team was amazing, and it all sort of stemmed from him. So that was sort of like the first inspiration. So I went off and I did some junior coaching. I coached at Campbelltown for a couple of years, and I coached at Parrot Hills. And then I got into the sort of the United setup with just the football school. So I wasn't actually coaching in the teams or anything, but the football schools program was like a community-based program where we would promote football in the communities, and people would get sort of coaching that was run by a guy called Hakabo, who was the assistant coach of the first team when Marco Kurz was here and Amor was here. So that was sort of he was the second inspiration. He was a lot of discovery of coaching. So as in like learning the foundation blocks for me to move along in my journey. And then obviously Paul Pezos when I moved with United, and then with Adelaide City. I've been with him for a number of years now, and picking his brain, he is incredible. He is really, really, really good, and I've been in the lucky position to learn from him for so many years. And the good thing about him is that he's completely open. He will help you whatever you want, and yeah, he's a nice guy because of that, and yeah, he's helping a lot. So they're sort of the three main ones.
Yeah, Pez has been on this show. I've got an enormous respect for him. And it's been great to see that you've been such a soaky sponge in this period of time, all these mentors that you've had. So obviously you spoke about entering into the fray with Adelaide United's youth team setups. So take us back, the football schools experience. I don't think it exists anymore, but it was certainly up and running for a period of time there, and it presented you with an absolutely brilliant opportunity to go on that trip to Spain, which I'm sure was like living a dream for so many of us who have aspired to coach at some level, let alone get to say that they've traveled to Spain in a professional sense. So talk to us about that first phase of being at Adelaide United as a young coach, where it was very much an introductory period for you, but obviously, you really started honing your craft from that point.
Yeah. So I went through this football schools program and basically through Sandra and Greg Griffin. So they sort of were the link between that. So they have been a massive part of helping me through my journey. So then I was coaching in this program, and there was a trip for Spain for this group of players that they picked, sort of an under 16 age group from this 15-week program that came from the football schools, plus some open trial players. So what ended up happening was Jacobo, who was the assistant coach that I spoke about earlier, he was going to be coaching one of the teams. So I actually just got on my computer and emailed him flat out. I said, listen, I know you need an assistant coach. I would like to do it. I'll help out with all these things, like whatever you need, I'll do. And he eventually said yes, which was really, really nice of him. I went to Spain, and this trip was incredible. And there was a couple of notable players: Gideon Rock, Jaden Labasso, obviously for Comets, and a number of other good players. So it was a good little team. But just being part of a team environment like that, with being in hotel rooms and going to pitches and buses it was just an incredible experience. And yeah, all these things along the way grew the passion for me to coach more and more and more. So from there are actually 4 players in the team that were from Parry Hills under 16s, and they didn't have a coach at the time. So that's when I stepped in and coached Parry Hills under 16s for the rest of the year. And then through that and all the sort of links that I formed there, Hus Skanderovic, actually, who was our youth team coach.
I remember him, yeah.
He brought me on board as the assistant for the reserves team, Adelaide United reserves team, in 2017. And that was our first season of Adelaide United reserves. So it was a brand new team, and yeah, we ended up having a good year.
He was a colourful guy from memory, Hus.
Hus, yeah.
But
he's a good guy though. He's a good guy. He was a good help to me as well. So yeah, big fan of Hus.
And just talk to us about just sticking on that Spain trip for a second.
Yep.
Did you? I know you were quite close to Guillermo, obviously Guillermo Moore's son, when he was involved playing in our youth setup here. So how often did you ever rub shoulders with Guillermo?
I tried to as much as I could, honestly. But so obviously, yeah, his son was in the Adelaide United reserves team at the time, and he was only there for the start of the season. I think he played 7 games. But whenever I could, I would have a chat to him more. I would see him around. I remember, so there was, for whatever reason, I coached one of the games for the reserves team, and I was coaching him more. I actually like head coaching.
Yes.
And it was just before Pez came in and took over the reserves team. Anyway, so I changed a few things to what I think would work or whatever. It worked only because I had great players, and Amor was playing, Amor Junior, and he was phenomenal. And I thought I was wild because I just won a game, but let's be honest, I had the best players. So then after the game, he comes up to me and he says, "Oh, good job." And I was like, "Oh, that's amazing." So
yeah, wow.
That's the dad. The dad's like, "Yeah, good job." I'm like, "Thanks."
Wow.
And I have he signed the top for me, which I ended up framing, which is behind me. So
wild, absolutely wild. That's the stuff of dreams right there. So obviously we progressed through to 17, 18. The Adelaide United reserves assistant would be your official sort of job title at this point in time, with Paul Pezos coming in. And of course, the reserves quite famously won that year. And that was really the start of such a fierce production line of players coming through to the senior team eventually. These were the foundations back in this season. So revisit this period of time for us. And, how did the whole thing with Pezos come about for you? Like, were you aware of each other before he came in?
So that season, early in the year, actually asked me to assist him with the girls. Now, he was doing also some football school stuff as well. I actually said no. I don't know why. I'm just an idiot, to be honest with you. But I actually said no only because I didn't know what I was doing. Well, to be honest, I had the idea of being reserves assistant coach of Adelaide United. Like, that's what I wanted. So yeah, I was trying hard for that. And I didn't really want anything to get in the way. And looking back on it, what an idiotic decision, because they don't even train at the same time. They don't even play at the same time. So I could have done that. It would have been great. Have some experience in the women's game. And especially with that team, there were so many good players. And yeah, so just briefly, we spoke to each other a little bit here and there. And then he came in, and yeah, we got along, and it went really well. We ended up winning the league and having a very memorable year, that's for sure.
No doubt about it. And then from there, obviously, you just kept kicking goals on a personal front, as did everyone involved in the youth setup at that time. It was, there's probably people who are going to come out now and say that, it's as good as it's ever been with all the young players in the Adelaide United senior team. But when you look at the names involved back then, even, it's just scary, isn't it? And, you're very much at the forefront of that with Paul Pezos. So
I think with that, sorry to interrupt, is that, I think Pez did a really, really good job of developing these players and taking them the next step, but they came as really good players as well. So the junior clubs, potentially the NTC program, and, they all played roles in these players' development. So, yeah, it's good to see, and a lot of them are doing good things. So, yeah.
Absolutely. So take us forward to 2018. You're now the NYL National Youth League assistant to Pezos, and also in the NPL 2. So it starts getting pretty serious for you at this point, Ange. And in 2018, of course, Adelaide United's youth team achieved their greatest ever finish.
Yeah, so I was traveling a little bit with the NYL and just helping Pez wherever he could. I was doing some analysis work during this period. The NYL was an amazing competition. It was playing against players the same ages and playing against a lot of quality. And I wish the NYL would go for double headers with the A-League maybe, and there's a lot more games, but I know financially it's a difficult thing to pull off. So I can understand that side of it, of course. And then obviously working in the NPL that year, 2018, I was actually still assisting with the reserves. Adrian Stent, who was coaching at the time, who's now the W League coach for Adelaide United. He was a fantastic coach as well. But then obviously doing some analysis stuff and assisting with Pez with his team as well. So again, the years I had at United were phenomenal. And it just really solidified that this is what I want to do. I want to coach. I want to be a professional coach. That's what I want my career path to be. And yeah, I've got a lot to thank for the people that were there, and obviously Pez and all the other coaches that helped me out along the way, and working with some amazing players and some good people.
So just on that notion, was there a point that you can pinpoint where you said to yourself internally, this is it now, this is really where I want to head as a direction, because being under Pezos, obviously, a fantastic mentor and a guy who many people say is, still to this day underutilized when it comes to coaching in Australia. So you were under him as a very young guy, but a very ambitious coach yourself. So was there a period where you thought, wow, that, that was such an intense session right there, or I just pulled off something great, or that was such a liberating win that I was just a part of? Was there a specific moment you can recall where you thought, yeah, this is it? This isn't just going to be a hobby for me and I'm going to pursue this?
I can actually. We went to China. I was assisting Pez. It was me and Pez, and we took over a team that involved Louis Dorigo, Lachlan Brook, Taras Gomulka is obviously a Melbourne City. It was just littered with very, very good players. And obviously in your head, you're only in Adelaide, so you're in your own little circle in Adelaide, and you think, okay, in the bigger world, you feel super insignificant. So you think to yourself, yeah, I would love to be a coach, but is it viable? Can you make enough money? Blah, blah, blah. We went to China with this team, and we played against China's Olympic A team, China's Olympic B team. So there's the best under 16s they have. We played against Bordeaux. We played against Southampton. We played against top teams. And this tournament was incredible. They paid for our whole, everybody's flight, everything. They paid for everything. And the purpose for the tournament was to help develop their Olympic players. So they wanted games against quality.
When was this, by the way? Sorry to interrupt.
It would have been 2019, I think.
Okay.
I think end of 2018 potentially. It was around that period there. But
right.
So we took that team across, and I just remember we played Southampton, and there was me and Pez, and we had these jackets, these Adelaide United jackets, and I don't know what happened, but mine was large, but it was this big. So we all just looked like we had crop tops on. It looked like idiots, honestly. And then we look at Southampton, they've got like an analyst guy who's filming the game and cutting the game. And then they have like 15 people on the bench. Anyway, Pez stands up, bang, bang, bang. We just killed them. We beat them 3-0. And we're talking after the game with them because we were staying in the same hotel. And we're like, and they said, yeah, this is our best under 16s team. And this is Southampton's produced like world-class players. And they pretty much offered Pez a job at that moment. I was sitting right there and I was on my laptop going through my crap graphics, and they were like loving it. And yeah, they pretty much offered Pez a job. And so that was the moment I was like, you know what? You just get in, you believe in yourself, you back yourself, you do everything you can to get there. And then who knows, you put that in the hands of fate. But if you give everything, good things can happen. So yeah, that was probably the moment.
What a story. Can you tell us why Pez declined?
Probably ask him, but he's
Yeah.
got a family, he's got kids here, Southampton in England. So yeah.
Craziness, absolute craziness. Just adds to the plethora of incredible experiences you've managed to carve out for yourself. So why did it, I guess, all come to an end? I'm assuming Pez was sort of the common denominator, but obviously had some great experiences, and then you decided to move on, becoming the under-19s coach at Adelaide City. So after the 2018 season in the NPL, at least our highest ever finish, as I said before, finishing 4th in that season, which is really quite remarkable, Ange, because when you consider the strength of our NPL in comparison to other NPLs across the country, as a youth team to achieve that is extraordinarily good.
We could have done better that year as well.
I recall.
We played Metro Stars I think that was the year that we played them in one of the finals, and we played so well, but we didn't score. And Lockie Brook was playing really, really sick, and he missed a couple of chances, but he couldn't breathe. And then they scored literally in the last minute with a quality header. And so it could have been more, but it was a phenomenal year. So basically, to answer that question, I moved on because I needed to start coaching my own teams. I was doing a lot of assisting, a lot of learning. I had to implement that. So
Sure.
Adelaide City under 18s, I was in contact with Adriano Pellegrino, who's the director of football at the club at the time. And we got chatting, and I thought it would be a good opportunity to go there and coach your under 18s team. And yeah, I had my own team to work with. I had my own philosophy I could try and implement. And it was a really, really good year. Like, I had a great time with that group, and I think if you ask any of them, they thoroughly enjoyed the year as well. So yeah, it was good, and it was good to see a few of them improving and growing, and some of them playing first team now. So
Inaugural Adelaide United player, of course, Adriano Pellegrino, and he's been on this podcast. So a shout out to him. Now, let's fast forward to 2020, a very, very, very eventful time, obviously with that COVID break right in the middle of the season, and then somehow the grand final being played in December, I believe it was, in 2020. Just real bizarre stuff. But under Matrich, after a disappointing first season for Michael Matriciani, he almost pulled off the unthinkable in 2020 with you as the assistant there. So I guess in hindsight and in retrospect, you would say that, that was the foundations building sort of in that year to go on and achieve something quite special the following year under Paul Pezos.
Yeah, so at the start of 2020, me and Michael got together, and he asked me to be his assistant. I was very thankful for that.
Another inaugural player, just before you go on there.
Trish, yeah. He actually, so the first team that I ever coached was Campbelltown's under 11s, right? Yeah. And he was the technical director, so he gave me that job. And I remember meeting with him and talking to him.
Wow.
Yeah, so there was a weird sort of moment then. So I was assisting him. And this was coming off. He had just come off a really difficult year.
Yeah.
They had the negative 6 points. A lot of players left at the start of the season, really completely out of his control. There were some issues going on, and he handled it so well, I thought. And I thought he did such a good job. And then to work with him as well, honestly, I took so much from him. He's so professional. He's got a very good way of speaking to players and getting his points across. And yeah, he had a brand new team. So the building of that's tough. And we ended up finishing 6th, I think it was, which is a vast improvement from the year before. And we had a bit of a run in the finals, and a couple of great wins. And mind you, the other teams did have red cards, but besides the point. And then we came up against Campbelltown, and they were the flying Campbelltown they were, and then that was it. It was over. But yeah, I did like another year. I haven't had a year yet that I really haven't enjoyed. Maybe the junior years. I didn't like those.
Yeah.
Coaching little 11-year-olds.
Well, it was still so impressive given the base that you guys came from in 2019. And just on Matriciani, having had him on the podcast, I think it shows how ballsy he is to have taken that position in the first place. After a club legend in Damien Murray steps aside, that's a massive job for anyone. It's kind of shades of like Moyes coming into Manchester United after Ferguson type of thing. Obviously, a much watered down kind of version. But and I've refed Matriciani recently too, his young PAC team, and it's scary how good he is communication wise with very young players. So you can see that he's going to be a great coach, and good luck to him. But he moves on in 2020, and obviously Adelaide City go back to one of the favourite sons and someone you know very well. Surprise, surprise, Paul Pezos. I guess a match made in heaven, Ange, considering how things ended up in 2021.
Yeah, it was tough on Matrish. I thought he did quite a good job, and you never ever want to see someone let go. And for me, it's a reflection on all of us. And I thought he did a fantastic job. So that was tough. But then the announcement that Pez was coming in, and I quite quickly became very happy again. And another year with him, which was good. But I knew when he was coming, I knew we're going to have something special going on. You could just tell when a few early signings, some young players, and it just started from there. The momentum started. And by the time we went to round one, we played Campbelltown round one, we were absolutely buzzing. And that first game against Campbelltown, the intensity of that was phenomenal. And that really set the standard for our season. So, yeah.
I think in the regular season, and you'll know better, obviously, but I think that one of the only teams to beat you guys in the regular season was Adelaide United quite early on. And I think that game was at Oakton too. Was it a little bit weird for you coaching against United?
Not really. I'd been away for a couple of years, and I don't see myself as some United. All I was as an assistant coach. So, I hadn't played 300 games for United and coming back and versing them. So not really at all, to be honest. It was they did the job on us, and good on them.
So we get the big announcement quite recently, actually, that you will become Adelaide City's next senior women's head coach. I'm sure you're still buzzing from that announcement. I know you said all the typical things about wanting to get on with it and blah blah blah, but don't be boring. It's a big thing. Now,
quoting me.
So talk to us about how you're going to try and make this team different, even though they were successful under Andy Counterbank, who's another very good coach, mind you, that went on and showed how good he is at South Adelaide as a senior men's head coach. So you now get the reins here. How are you going to change this team, and I guess what changes are needed, and what can you take from what you're inheriting, I guess? Yeah,
so I think so. For me, I'm looking to recruitment. A key focus for me is I want to bring the Adelaide City culture, firm culture again, the winning that we had. And so in doing that, I've brought some players from past teams back. Ali Atkins has come back to the club, Valeria and a few others. So that was sort of an important step for me, as I wanted to bring a few of those back. And Alicia Nicholas was another one who didn't play last season, and
big name.
I think a massive recruit for us. And then I want a sort of a group of young players as well, because we need to develop the next crop at this club, a group of players that can go on and win for us. And so, so we signed Marwa Samora from West Adelaide, Katie Bowler from NTC, just to name a couple. So, that's sort of been the start, but I'm lucky I inherited a good group of girls, a good group of players, and there's already that culture there, and it's come from the playing group that have been there for a number of years, with Daniela as sort of leader of the team from the past, Alice Macaulay, Isabel Dunn-Fly, you know, I can go on. So there's a lot to work with here. I'm so excited. I cannot wait. And the 2 sessions we had, the first one, I went home and I was like, oh my God, like I made a mistake there. I made a mistake there. And it's sort of adjusting to a different style. But then the second session was phenomenal. We start on Monday and yeah, I can't wait.
We wish you all the best with it, of course. Just talk to us about the kind of infrastructure and what's going on behind the scenes at Adelaide City. We know Adriano Pellegrino has a very big part to play in everything that Adelaide City does at a senior level. And Greg Griffin now is the chairman of Adelaide City too. So talk to us about how things are behind the scenes.
Yeah, so it's been a bit of a chaotic time, but now we've sort of solidified. Greg's come in. Greg, everyone knows Greg Griffin. I work for Greg in my day job. So he came in. I was like, okay, Pairs and Greg. I'm like, so it's, yeah, a bit of overkill going on. But anyway, then Adriano is director of football. And yeah, things are solidifying now. And yeah, it was a great result for the men's to win. And, you know, we'll see what happens with the women's this year. And hopefully we can be the force of the club that we should be.
Most definitely. Now, before I ask you, to give us a bit of a glimpse at what the future may hold for you in a long-term sense, answer me this. What kind of manager are you? Are you the kind of manager that wants full control, like, a sort of old school Ferguson type, or do you have specific things that you'll delegate? Tell us what kind of manager you are.
No, I think you have to delegate a number of things. You'll burn out. It's too difficult, and you've got amazing people that you have at your disposal. Use their abilities. So I brought in Ayubi Hussain from Fulham United. He was their first team coach. Like, that's a perfect example. He's someone who's coached in the league before. He's going to be my assistant coach, and already he's been incredible. I'm probably pestering a bit too much. I call him all the time. I'm like, how do I approach this and this? What about this player? Blah, 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 blah. So, yeah. So, you know, you have these people with you. You got to use their expertise. You don't know everything. I'm still learning. So, yeah. But when it comes to on the pitch, I definitely take, 95% of the session. That's just my approach.
Now, I recall, thanks for sharing that, by the way. Now, I recall a certain occasion where you and I had a discussion at a certain house party, and you're able to quite impressively delineate what the future holds for you. So if you can, I guess, divulge in a vague sense, what your ultimate goal is as a young, ambitious coach. And also, just a shout out to you. You gave me a bit of a masterclass in how you believe teams should press. And I have to say, without wanting to make you sound uncomfortable, it was one of the most impressive, intense kind of discussions I've had in football. And I've been around plenty of people in the game. So it's scary where the game may take you one day, Ange.
Let's see. You got to go step by step. So right now I'm the Adelaide City's WNPL coach, and that's my foreseeable future so far. What the future is, I don't know. Do I want to be a professional coach? Do I want to go into bigger and better things? Absolutely. But I can't get ahead of myself and start thinking about that. I've got a job to do now. Whether that takes me 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, or 4 years, again, we'll see.
Very well answered. You've learned from some of the best, and it's very much reflective in what's been a pretty big session here, Ange Paul. So all the very best to you in all your future endeavours. It's been an absolute privilege to have you on and hear your views and your insights and your tactical analysis too. Certainly a manager in the South Australian game that many people will be hearing a lot more from in the years to come. And we wish you all the best with everything. And thank you so much for coming on the show.
Ellis, thank you. I really appreciate it. Enjoyed my time. Thanks.
Awesome stuff. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Go the Reds, and we'll see you next time. All the best. Thank you very much.